Welcome to Building the Future. I'm your host, Kevin Horick. You can check out new episodes of the show every Tuesday and Thursday at 2 p.m. If you missed an episode or want to get more information about the show, please visit buildingthefutureshow.com. Welcome back to the show. Today we have Rick West. He's the CEO and co-founder at Field Agent. Rick, welcome back to the show.
Hey, Kevin, man, listen, it's great to be back. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I'm excited to have you back on the show. You know, you were a guest about a year and a half ago, and I kind of love how you guys have a new product that you're working on, and I also am curious to kind of see where you've taken, Field Agent in the last year and a half, because I think that, to me at least, is I'm always curious in people's journey with their startups and their companies and stuff like that. But maybe before we kind of get into kind of everything you're working on, maybe for people that don't know who you are or who Field Agent is, let's maybe just get to know you a little bit better and kind of cover where you grew up, kind of where you went to school, and kind of how you got to Field Agent. And then we'll dive kind of into what we're going to talk about today.
Sure, that sounds great. All right, so let me take you back to, in my world, and for your listeners out there, especially those that are ferocious readers, there's a current book out by J.D. Vance that's called Hillbilly Elegy. Are you familiar with it?
I've never heard of this, but go on. I'm curious.
Dude, you've got to read the book. Okay, you've got to read the book. So here's a guy that was currently in Silicon Valley, had his JDA from Yale Law, became an attorney. Now he's an investment guy, in a VC firm. But his family and culture came from Appalachia, from eastern Kentucky.
Interesting.
He then grew up in Ohio. And this book really talks through the impact that culture has on your life, really for the eternity that you're on this planet. And he talks about these roots that his grandparents had and his parents had, and how they impacted him and how he had to deal with those because they're not going to go away, and how you started to manage them. And so I tell you that story in that if readers are really interested in how this guy, Rick West, could grow up in eastern Kentucky and Appalachia, go to school, start to work for Procter & Gamble, and have an international experience of working in Hong Kong and Thailand and having this unbelievable career. Like, how do the kids start from there and move over here? The book gives some premise to that. So I want your listeners to know that I'm just an average guy that through relationships and working hard really had amazing opportunities and made the best of those. And then if you're an entrepreneur at heart, which I am, one thing led to another, and then boom, in 2001 started this shopper marketing, shopper research firm, and then it led into Field Agent. And so that was kind of the path that I took. And this as you talk to folks, Kevin, you have bumps along the way, right?
Sure.
I mean, I tell people two key things about bumps along the way for us. Number one, when we started doing work outside of corporate America, we were taking our very first flight. I mean, we were excited. It's a new business, and we're taking the flight. We had to connect through Memphis, and it's about 8:50 in the morning, and we're going to go connect. And the flight attendant said, "Listen, man, your flight's been canceled. Crazy stuff going on at the airport." We're like, "Oh man, we're going to miss our first meeting ever in our brand new company." As we walked down the aisle there in the terminal, walked into a little cafe to grab a cup of coffee, and we saw the second plane hit the World Trade Center.
Oh, crazy.
So we found a friend that had a rental car, jumped in the car. Another guy said, "Man, can you drop me off?" We said, "Sure." So we jumped in a car and for 5 hours listened to AM radio talk about the attack at the Twin Towers.
Sure.
And that was after I had resigned my job, transferred from another country into Northwest Arkansas. I didn't have a car, didn't have a house, didn't have a job, thinking, what have I done? But that breeds excitement, and then from that you get kind of scrappy. And so that was the first thing. It kind of got us scrappy from day one, kind of moving on. And the second thing that really was pivotal for us starting Field Agent is that I was using my experience as a corporate person, coming from P&G, understanding how corporate things worked, and was always looking for that really interesting idea, something that could work. And Field Agent was truly an idea that could scale. And what I mean by that is that in most cases, the work I'd done before, you needed, Rick in the living room. You needed me in the boardroom. I needed to be at the meeting. And to scale that, I had to recreate, 10, 15 Ricks, which are It's hard to do, expensive to do. But with Field Agent, it really is a product that we could scale. And so for the first time, I said, gosh, that's something that we could go drive and really change an industry. And I don't have to be in 200 or 300 living rooms to make it happen. So two pivotal things that got us to Field Agent.
No, that's fascinating to me, actually. So for people that haven't heard of Field Agent, what exactly is it?
Yeah, so I want people to understand, first of all, we started Field Agent in the pre-selfie era. Kevin, do you remember pre-selfies?
I do. I remember the pre-internet era too.
There you go. So think about pre-selfies. So if your listeners are out there and you're looking at your phones, listen, when the iPhone 3S came out in early 2009,
Yep.
That's the first iPhone that allowed you to have video. You didn't have to jailbreak your phone to get video.
You're right. I remember jailbreaking my iPhone 3G to get video.
To get video, right? The App Store had been out and running for about 3 or 4 months. Apps
Yep.
were coming out. There was no front-facing camera. But at that point in time, as we were looking at the technology, we were trying to solve a problem. So when people hear about Field Agent, the first thing you need to understand is that we are a research, kind of a marketing company that use technology to solve a problem. So we would be considered more of a tech-enabled company versus a tech company. All right, so that's the first thing. So tech-enabled company.
Interesting.
And the problem we were trying to solve, Kevin, is that people needed access to shopper data, both inside of the home and inside of retail. And the only way to get that, way, way, way back in 2009, was to fly people all over the United States to go inside of someone's home and to interview them. Very time consuming, very expensive. And so our question that we ask, sitting around a table, 5 of us with these iPhone 3Ss, Googling on the phone, not your computer, because it was cooler to Google on your phone.
Of course, right.
Was we were trying to determine if anyone was using technology that allowed shoppers to capture data inside of a retail location, and no one was doing it.
Sure.
So 3 months later, same meeting, we said, gosh, I wonder if this is happening. And it wasn't. And so we spent the next 6 months working nights and weekends while we ran 3 other companies to get this ready to launch. And in April 2010, when we launched Field Agent, it was the first crowdsourcing app, which allowed people, again, all over the world to download an app to capture information. We're the first app on iTunes that would pay someone via PayPal. At that time, it was all about points and badges. Foursquare, you could be the mayor of, Ontario. You could be the mayor of, Fayetteville, Arkansas. But we paid people cold, hard cash via PayPal. And the second thing was we actually used geolocation, that GPS on the phone, to qualify where you were and data coming back in. So I want you to think of now April 2010.
Sure. You had to be one of the first people even using geolocation too in an app, correct? Outside of the core apps.
There you go. So Uber launched in June 2010.
Oh, okay, interesting.
There you go. So think about that. So we actually launched before, Uber, which is considered the epitome of, hey, crowdsourcing. What does crowdsourcing mean? How does that play out? You obviously look to Uber. Now, I'd love to say that we're worth about, a 50 to 100 billion market cap. That's not the case.
Sure.
But hey, we'll work with that. So if you think about us launching, so everyone understands it, we really created this app that allowed you to provide information to us, and that information feels sort of like you're a mystery shopping person, right? You're a secret shopper. You're capturing information inside of a store, the price of an item, or take a picture of a display for execution, or you're buying product inside of a quick serve restaurant. So you're at, Wendy's or McDonald's or Burger King, and then you take a picture of the food and tell me what you think about it. And so that type of machine is what we created. And if you fast forward over the last 7 years, we continue to find more and more unique verticals that really are looking for a crowdsourced app that has millions of people that have downloaded it, that has everyday viewers like yours that want to make a few extra dollars. And that's really what we do.
Sure. So you kind of roughly covered exactly kind of, like you just kind of mentioned, but how does it kind of really work? Like walk me through from downloading the app to going somewhere, taking some photos, gathering some data to kind of getting paid, just so the user or the listener totally understands kind of how the whole workflow kind of works.
Sure. So let's say that you're the listener right now, and in my case, it's almost noon, so you're getting ready to have lunch. You would open up the app and say, "Wow, look at this! I could go to lunch at a local restaurant here, Tacos for Life, which is fantastic. I could do that. Or, man, here's a thing at Subway. I can make $5 to go to Subway right now to try one of their sandwiches. I think I'm going to go to Subway right now."
Okay.
So the first thing is that when you open up the app, you see all of these opportunities to make cash right on your phone on a simple map. Um, you're never going to drive, 20, 30 miles to go make $3, right, or $5. It's not going to be the case. But what happens is when you're on your way to lunch, you're on your way to work, you're on your way home, you make shopping and restaurant decisions. And you're trying to make a restaurant decision, you find out that I'm going to, buy a beer for you and pay you $5 to basically give me your opinion on the beer, how it was served, and what it looked like. Like, wow, I was going to go to this restaurant. I'm changing my restaurant because I'm going to go here.
Sure.
Or you're shopping in a supermarket and you're at Target and you open up the app. You're like, wow, while I'm here, why don't I make $3 or $4 by answering a couple of questions about a product? So the everyday user downloads our app so that they can make cash while they're out doing everyday things. So that's the premise behind of it. Now, what the second phase of that is that this isn't a game. So people are like, wow, Rick, is this kind of a cool game? Can you play? We're like, no, it's not a game. Because the data that you're capturing is used by multinational, multi-billion-dollar firms to make decisions. So when I ask you for a photo, you can't take a picture of your foot and laugh about it and say, hey, wasn't that funny? It was a picture of my foot. Kevin, that's not what we're looking for. I need a photo of exactly what I'm looking for so that people can use the data. So you're at noon, you're shopping, you take a picture of the display. By the time you submit the picture, it goes through our QC process. Within an hour or so, you've got $5 in your PayPal account. I mean, It really is that fast and that simple.
That's awesome. That's great, man. And like, I don't know if you really want to mention some of the brands on air, but if you go to like fieldagent.net, like you have some of the biggest brands kind of globally, right? That everybody's heard of or at least seen, right? Like
we do. We tell people we work with about a quarter of the Fortune 50 and over half of the Fortune 500.
Yeah, so
all those guys are out there. Yeah, so you're going to see everything from Tile, the little tile you can put on your keychain where people are checking out. So Tile would be a company like Procter & Gamble or Unilever, when you think about Tide detergent, companies like that, or even a company like a Walmart or a Target that will use us to do some mystery shopping or engagement for their associates. Those are the type of companies we work with that really need access to everyday shoppers, but has found it really cost prohibitive and difficult to go get access to them. And we provide access in a way that they've never had before.
Sure. No, that's great, man. And that's kind of why I originally wanted to have you on the show, because I thought what you guys were doing was really innovative, right? And it's been innovative since you could basically do it on a phone.
Yeah, exactly.
So I'm curious, though, and maybe it's me being kind of selfish here, what has kind of, you haven't been on the show in about a year and a half. I'm curious to know what stayed the same and what's changed with Field Agent, just because, obviously new phones have come out, new OSs for phones have come out, the power and what you can do and do now has gotten kind of, better. So what is kind of new and changed about Field Agent or stayed the same?
Yeah, so let's talk about the traditional piece that stay the same for us. We still collect information. We tell our customers or our clients that anything a shopper can do, we can do. So there are eyes and ears inside of a store. So an everyday shopper could take a photo, they could do a video, they could engage with an associate. What we don't ask everyday shoppers to do is to go in the back room to use a pallet jack, take the pallet off the rack, open up 2 cases, and build a display. Mm-hmm. That's not what we do. So that premise of that every single day is the same. Now, what's unique about this, Kevin, is that think about all the other verticals now that have understand what we do. They're asking us to do work for them. So let's jump into the insurance world, right?
Oh, interesting.
So if you purchased a home today,
okay,
the insurance company would hire a contractor to drive out to your home, take a photo of your home, and to drive back in, go to their computer, submit that photo, and they're going to spend probably $50, $100 to go get that contractor to go do that. They can't use something on Zillow. They can't use Google Earth. They need an actual photo of today. Well, they now use us because an everyday person is driving by that home. They stop, roll down their window, take a couple of photos, and for $10, I'm done.
Nice.
So we're completely disrupting and changing that insurance vertical. So what stayed the same eyes and ears, everyday shoppers. And you know what, Kevin? I bet you've taken a picture of a home in your days, right?
Oh, sure, of course, yeah.
You just have, right. So again, the premise stayed the same. So, wow, that's a really interesting vertical, Rick. Yeah, it is. So then you take it a little bit further and say, wow, now you've got a VC firm or a private equity firm, and they're getting ready to buy a commercial building that's in downtown Atlanta.
Okay.
Well, they're trying to figure out, is it occupied? How many people are in it? So we take some pictures of the post office boxes, like the little boxes where you walk in.
Oh,
We take a
interesting.
picture on the placard on the front, and they can very quickly assess how many of the actual apartments or business units are occupied, and they can go, qualify that. So wow, so VC firms are using us for things like that.
Oh,
You take
interesting.
that vertical, and I mentioned, buying a beer. It's now on premise. So I need someone to go to a restaurant and actually order something. Well, okay, that's kind of mystery shopping. But here's what's unique about that. Not only do I want you to go into that restaurant, I want you to actually take a picture of how things are presented, because companies are paying that restaurant or a bar. Let's use a Red Bull as an example.
Okay.
If you go order a drink with Red Bull, Red Bull has contracted with that restaurant or that bar to make sure that that can of Red Bull is sitting beside of the drink.
Right.
Well, how do
Gotcha.
they know that's being executed?
Sure.
Well, we could go in, make a purchase, and show that's been executed. So what's new for us are very interesting verticals that are popping up that we simply didn't think that was something that we would actually be doing, even a year ago. So that's changed dramatically for us. And on the technology side, which is really pretty cool for us, more and more people are now depending upon video and voice to do work.
Mm-hmm.
So you think of the whole concept of Siri, the Amazon Echo with talking to Alexa.
Yeah.
Those are things that are very commonplace. And so we didn't want to fall behind from a technology standpoint. So we launched a new app, or really it's a new process called Jicco.
Okay.
And Jicco allows companies to simply ask a question the same way that they would ask a question via Google.
Okay.
So think of a business person today, and they've got a product on in Whole Foods. And for them to understand what the product looks like in Whole Foods, or they're trying to check competition, they would go into Google and say, hey, Google, show me a picture of, a product inside of a Whole Foods. Well, that could be 6 months old, Kevin.
Sure.
And it's probably one photo. Well, instead of asking us to do a project, which could take a few days to go do, they simply go into the search bar, and they type in, what does organic spinach look like inside of a Whole Foods? And within 10, 15 minutes, they've got 5, 10 photos of 5 or 10 different Whole Foods showing them exactly what it looks like.
Interesting.
So the premise, again, the engine's the same, right?
Sure.
Individuals that are crowdsourcing, capturing data. But here's what's different. I didn't have to write the project, build the project. So it really is bringing that Google search. And we tell people, instead of Googling it, why don't you just Jicco it? So go Jicco. And so
Interesting.
Jicco allows you to engage the exact same way that you would via a Google search engine. But instead of someone going back and looking at old data, I'm giving you near real-time information coming in. And that was really birthed out of this whole Ask Alexa, right? Hey, Alexa,
Sure.
or Hey, Siri. We thought we could do the exact same thing. And that's been really exciting for us, because our clients love, obviously, the entertainment value of that, right? But
Sure.
what's more important, as you look at more and more technology that's more voice recognition, we wanted to be on the forefront of that. And so it's really been exciting for us as we launched Jicco.
No, I think it's actually quite fascinating to me that you kind of, well, maybe this is oversimplification, but you're basically building like a simple version of Field Agent that's like live, real time, just because of like that segment in that market, right? And it's got to
Right.
come out of, yeah, sure, like Alexa or Google Home or all this other things, but you must have heard this time and time again from your Field Agent users that they want something that's quicker, right? And a little bit.
Yes.
But I think that's, and why I keep wanting to bring that up, because I think that's super innovative in itself, right? Because you listen to demand from your current users to build a new app and site that allows people to, kind of, you're basically listening to your users, right? And seeing what they want and innovating your product, or building new products that maybe don't necessarily fit into your current product, right? And I think people are so scared to try new things or just say like, no, we don't do that, right? But where I like about what you guys are doing is you're saying, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So we're going to, make another product. Still will reference the field agent branding and name and stuff like that in the product, but it's separate from it, right? And I think
Absolutely.
But I think people are scared to do that, right?
Well, it is. So if you think about you've got that your listeners out there today, and so I want you to think to the folks that are in the business world, or really any type of consulting or engagement. You always want to be the smartest person at the table, and
Sure.
that's not based on your IQ. I'm talking about being prepared and coming in. So think of our world. We were always taking data that would take 6 weeks to 2 or 3 months to go get. We've actually brought that in, and you can capture data within hours and days. Like, wow, we completely disrupted that industry. So now you want to be the smartest person in the room. So you're getting ready to have a meeting, and the meeting is going to talk about new lighting and signs inside of malls.
Sure.
And that's the meeting's about signing, and you wanted to go through, and everyone's going to be coming in, being prepared. And he's like, well, I'm just going to Jicco it, and I'm going to get some really interesting information from these malls. And so you say, hey, Jicco, show me a couple of interesting signs in these malls. And then in 15, 20 minutes, you walk into the meeting, and everyone's talking about signage and pulling up data. He said, well, I was just in these 10 stores today, and here's a really interesting sign, and no one's seen it. You just became the smartest person in the room.
Sure. And everybody
happened in minutes.
No, that's
everyone
great.
Gets it.
Yeah.
Yet now you're in a meeting, and someone says, well, that's interesting, but I don't think those signs are in this area. And you say, well, okay, this person's challenging me. And while they're talking, you pull up your iPhone, you type in, hey, Jicco, would you check to see if these signs are in these 3 states? And in 15 minutes, say, hey, that question you asked a little while ago? I've confirmed it is in these 3 states, so it is it is a national execution. You just became even smarter. So Jicco allows you to be the smartest person in the room because you're getting data within minutes, and you're dispelling anyone that would challenge you. And while we can do that with Field Agent, it might take hours or days. And so Jicco allows you to ask questions with the Field Agent machine, and Field Agent allows you to capture data from a more national perspective. So it's been really exciting to hear back from our users on how, to your point, we've solved another problem.
Sure. The other thing that you touched on there that I think, at least for me, is really important is data doesn't lie, right? Like, it's really hard to argue. Like, I'm just looking at right now currently the live feed of stuff, and like somebody said, are there shaving promotions at Kroger? And somebody took a photo, and there clearly are. Like, there's no way I can argue that, right?
That's
like,
exactly
here you go.
Right.
Like, you can prove somebody kind of wrong, and then there's no argument, which, to my point, I guess I'm trying to get at is you could almost simplify meetings, right? Because there's no way to argue. You just like, you know what, let's just meet after we ask a few questions and get back the data, and maybe we'll meet later in the day and we'll decide if, well, let's see, is Kroger running promotions right now? Well, maybe we will if we're a competitor of Kroger, right? Yeah. Is kind of what I'm getting at, right? Instead of just arguing about it, let's just see what's out there and then go for it.
Right. There's nothing worse than walking into a meeting and your boss's boss is sitting there and said, well, my spouse or my friend was just at this location.
Totally.
And said, this is going on. We've got a problem. And you're like, oh my goodness. And then with Jicco, you can say, hey, boss, hey, whoa. I did find that one location, but I checked 10 other stores in the city. It's not there. It's got to be a rogue store. I mean, that's going to change your life. I mean, totally. Just by being able to gauge that and making it happen really, really quick. The same way with your client. You're trying to sell the client. Well, I've seen this in all these other locations, and this price isn't this, or hey, I think this is what's happening. You said, well, let's check that out, and I'll have information back in 15 minutes. You type it in, you continue with your meeting, and 15 minutes later, you're like, wow, I stand corrected. That's really not what's happening. I was just in 2 stores. I didn't really check the whole market. Thanks for letting me know. Again, data can't lie, right?
Sure.
It's that sports analogy of, hey, I didn't do that, coach. The coach says, listen, the magic eye in the sky doesn't lie. Tomorrow when we look at video, I'm going to know the truth. Don't lie to me.
No,
Well, we provide that same type of technology here, is that it really keeps honest people honest, and it gives you fresh insights at a moment's notice. And so Jicco's allowed us to really take that same field agent engine
hmm
and to kind of take that time frame that we took from months to days to hours, and we're taking it to minutes. So again, it's just another technology improvement by using something like Jicco that really solves another important need that was out there.
So I want to dive a little bit deeper in the technology because you just covered on it, but where did you come up with the name?
Yeah. So from a naming standpoint for us is I use Nike as the example, right?
Okay.
So Nike's out there, and everyone said, well, what does Nike mean, and how does it play out? And what about Google, and what does Google mean? And so we wanted to create a name that really didn't mean anything,
Sure.
that would really be fun to go use. But it's kind of a little secret for us. It's an internal term that we've been using for years.
Okay.
And then internally, when we got ready to launch this, was, hey, Jicco only means something to us.
Sure.
It's gonna be really cool if we go launch this. And when you Google it, other than it's someone's name in North Korea and there's something else, I mean, there's nothing on the web. You can't find anything about Jicco. And so now that when you're searching it, I don't have to go through 3 pages of finding information on it. We pop up first. So it was pretty exciting for our team to take a term that we had, bring it to life, and to create kind of this industry standard now about near real-time search engine, for retail. So it's been really exciting to be able to do that.
No, that's awesome. I'm always curious to know how people come up with some of that stuff, especially when it's as unique as that, right?
Yeah. You talk to branding experts, and they'll tell you is that you have to be cautious about creating a name that's so specific that you can't branch off from it. And so Jicco allows us to do a lot of fun things with it.
Sure. So you touched on it a second ago about you leverage kind of the field agent technology to build Jicco. Right. So how much of field agent could you kind of reuse for this product, and how much did you have to kind of re-architect or add on to basically make Jicco a thing?
Yeah, so as your listeners are kind of processing this within their own company, asking this core question, I go back to earlier comments I made, is that the engine that we created with Field Agent enabled us to do this. If we started with the idea of Jicco today without the engine, we would have fallen flat. There's just simply no way we could execute it.
Okay.
But because you have to have the mass that we have with our agents, right? The millions of people that are engaging with Field Agent. You have to have the infrastructure to be able to process data in a matter of minutes.
Sure.
And you've got to be able to have that front end to be able to allow people to engage. So while Jicco is a very unique front end, all the back end, all the things, kind of that secret sauce, those are the things that your listeners should be saying, gosh, I've got this secret sauce. I've got this amazing product. How do I create another front end that allows people to engage that machine in a unique and different way, so that I can capitalize on it and grow my business? And that's really how we looked at Jicco, because starting out on its own would have been really, really difficult for us to go do.
Sure, but you brought up, you basically answered the question like how I was hoping you would, because I think that's one thing that has come up with me personally, maybe not me personally, or like people I know, where they're basically like, I have this business, whether it's, say like a home builder or something that's not tech related, or maybe it is tech related, but how do you kind of leverage what you have to make another spin-off product or company or something, right? And I think the thing that's interesting about what you guys did is you basically, to your point, is you didn't have to start from scratch, right? And you figured out how to use 50%, 75%, it doesn't really matter what the percentage is.
No.
But, I think that's really how you can really grow a startup, whether it's in, kind of the physical or kind of digital or both.
Yeah, and I think it's important for your listeners as you go through. Remember, it's one thing to say you're a tech company, right? And there are tech companies that are out there.
Sure.
We would even argue that Amazon is an e-commerce company. It's not really a tech company.
Sure.
But it's a tech-enabled company. So we use technology to become a tech-enabled company to go solve problems, as opposed to creating something really cool and shiny and say, hey, you want to buy it?
Yeah.
And so for your listeners that are out there, say, man, what are you good at, right? And you use the home builder example. If I'm a home builder, and then I want to use technology to make my home seem like a home of the future, Well, you're still going to use 90% of the skills and the contractors you've used to build an amazing home. But you've now tweaked it enough to say, hey, but on the front end of this, I'm going to use technology to make it different. And that's kind of what we've done with Jicco. We're an amazing machine that's coming in. Our clients trust us. They trust our data. They love working with us. So adding something new on top of that is a really, really good thing for us, right? As opposed to, let's do something new, but I haven't earned your trust. You're not sure about the data. I'm not sure I can go do that. So I also often tell people, especially in the research world, that that billion-dollar brands have been launched by doing focus group over the last 50 years.
Sure.
So don't apologize for doing focus groups. However, you're naive to think that you can continue to do focus groups the same way without technology.
Sure.
You simply can't go do that. And so I think for your listeners, it's the exact same thing. Don't let technology make you think, oh gosh, I've got to stop what I'm doing and go create something new. And for some people, that's the case. But it's really important from a technology standpoint to take that core of what you do every day that you're known for, and do you refresh it and make it new and make it better. And that's really what we've done with Jicco.
No, I love that. I think that's actually really, really good advice. And I think the thing that's interesting to me about this is you're basically solving a real problem, and then you're taking kind of other problems that you hear about, and you're like, we could very much leverage that, our technology to solve that problem. And you'll keep going. And I'm sure in 6 months or a year, you might send me another email saying, hey, we got this new thing, right? And
that's exactly right.
But I love that, right? I think that's what it's all about. And that's what's fun about all this stuff, right? Is you build something and then you're like, how can we keep it going in these new directions that, when you first probably started Field Agent, you were like, this probably was never even thought of, right? Or maybe you did, but...
No, but it really wasn't, because you go down this path of saying, all right, I think I can go create this to go make this thing execute. And if you're familiar with Guy Kawasaki?
Yeah.
So if you think about his earlier pitches, and he talked about the things they did with the Macintosh, and one of his quotes just resonates so true, and I'll butcher his quote, but here it is conceptually, is that when you design something that's kind of that jump curve worthy, it's like it's going to change the world, make sure you execute it and launch it early. And it's okay if it has elements of crappiness, because the end user is going to tell you more things than you ever dreamed about what you could do with it and how you could use it. So his premise was, hey, don't ship crap. That's terrible, right? But if you think you've got something, get it out there and let your users come back. And those are the types of things that we've seen now. I mean, with obviously millions of people from an agent standpoint providing us data, and thousands of clients that are engaging us. If you listen and you're a good listener and you do your research, they're going to tell you things you'd never dreamed to use with a product. And so that's how we've grown in different verticals. Never dreamed we would do that. And that's really how we're using Jicco, is that you get this, gosh, I wish I could have used you last week, but I just had this question. And by the time I called you, got the data back, I didn't really need it, so I couldn't use you. You're like, well, wait a minute. I think we could do that. I mean, I want to solve that problem. I don't want you to go somewhere else. I want you to solve that problem. So that's really, really important for your listeners to understand.
Sure. I think the other thing that we've kind of maybe skidded the edges of is you have a whole network of loyal users that when you roll out a new feature or product, it is very easy to go from kind of 0 users on the day that you launch to, hundreds of thousands or millions of users, right? Where if you launched Jicco as like a separate company that, you didn't promote it at all to the Field Agent kind of users, it would take you an astronomical amount of time and money to go from, 0 to hundreds of thousands or millions of users, right?
Exactly. So that's building upon that base, right? So you're going to get some new users and you get some new clients, but you really want to stay fresh and continue to grow things with your current user base, your current client base. So you're exactly right. It was important for us to make sure that as we were growing the Field Agent franchise and people understood our brand, and we continued to do great work with our clients, that when we did something new, we weren't alienating them to say, oh, yeah, that was kind of nice, but we're going to move on to something else. We wanted to make sure they understand that that's not the case. It is something new and interesting, but it really was solving their problems that they told us that they had. And so our clients get that. And in Field Agents that are out there today capturing data, when they see the different types of work that's coming in front of them, they're like, oh, I can just hear them saying, hey, there's something new. They must have received a new client. I better do a really good job because I want to see more work like this. So it's a great ecosystem that we built.
Sure. So I'm curious to know, what is the cost of kind of both products?
Yeah, so you think about it from a pricing standpoint for us. If someone was using Field Agent today and they wanted to do a project, we tell them it's probably going to cost you around $10 to engage someone inside of a store, for us to process the data, to pay the agent, $3, $5, whatever the case may be. So that's kind of an ongoing number. To get started with Jicco, since we're asking questions, we just pushed this out, a little while ago. Is that for an end user, instead of doing, a massive amount of credits for us, they can simply join for $99 a year.
Wow.
Okay, $99 a year
That's
to
cheap.
do it. Again, that's cheap. That's low end. Again, for our larger clients, they're spending a lot more money than that.
Sure.
But what's important is if you said, listen, I'm just a guy that's in business and I'm trying to understand and I'm really trying to use a product like this, what is it really going to cost me? Like, listen, for $99, give it a shot, and you can ask a few questions and see what it's like. And then if you really want to get in and have your team use it, we've got other fees associated with that. So you can actually buy a $5,000 package or a $10,000 package. But for the individual today, listen, take your credit card,
Sure.
click on, swipe it, spend the $99. It's the best download you've had. I mean, you're going to spend more than that to take 4 friends out to dinner tonight, right?
Sure. Or tank of gas, right?
or tank of gas, exactly.
Like driving around. But like we joke, but like realistically, if you had one person that on your team drive around for a day or half day, you would spend more in salary and gas than $100 or $99, right?
That's exactly right. We always joke and say, listen, you'll never have to ask your employees or yourself to leave your office to go drive cross town to get a great, focus group data of one, where I can be in 10 states in 15 minutes.
Yeah.
Why on earth would you ever go do that again? But again, it goes back to, I didn't have time. And so that's why with Field Agent, we do, $10,000, $100,000 projects. It's great, right?
Sure.
But we wanted to solve that need. We said, hey, I just had a meeting today and I just needed to ask a quick question. Jicco solves that.
Sure. No, I love that. So is there anything with Jitco that you're looking to roll out kind of in the near future? Is it still kind of a little bit hush-hush, or is there kind of, some other things that are coming in the very near future that you're excited to mention?
Yeah, I think for the users that are out there now that are saying, gosh, how's Jitco going to play out? There's one key thing that we're all dealing with right now as you look at technology in general, and that technology is really along the lines of voice.
Okay,
right?
sure.
And so how can I engage voice? So I think you're going to see with Jicco, where you're typing something in right now, we're really playing around with voice. And so I would say in the not too distant future, next 30, 45 days, we'll reach back out to you and tell your listeners of something really new and unique that we're doing.
Sure.
That's going to enable folks to really use this in a way that's not only going to be relevant to how they're engaging other technology, but is really going to change how they're engaging the product.
Sure. No, I think that's great. And kind of, this is my favorite time of year, and it sounds very nerdy, but like Google I/O's happening, and the iOS event, is next week or next month, sorry. And it's like, I love this when all the new stuff kind of comes out in like late spring, kind of early summer, right? And for me, this is like my favorite time of year because, people are kind of obviously the Christmas holidays are over. It's a long time before kind of Thanksgiving and Christmas happens again. And then there's this period before kind of the summer hits where all this new stuff is kind of coming out and people are excited and kind of recharged a little bit, right? And excited for, this kind of year. And so for me, and just you mentioning kind of voice and stuff, it seems like that's kind of the next big kind of thing. And I know even just watching the Google I/O keynote the other day, that they were talking about kind of, it's not mobile first anymore. It's kind of like AI first, right? And to me, I kind of put voice in that kind of AI kind of category, right? Because it's kind of loosely based on that, but you need AI to recognize voice and what you're talking about and structure sentences and kind of figure out and actually do kind of voice search and actions, right? And I love the fact that you guys are kind of on the cutting edge of that, right?
Exactly. And so when you think of being relevant in technology today, obviously there are the Googles of the world that are out there. You've got Samsung, you've got all these people that are driving tech.
Yeah.
They're tech companies.
Yep.
A tech-enabled company says, okay, I can see where this is going. I can see where people are starting to gravitate in that direction. So I want to make sure that my organization is going to be one of the first to engage that technology to enable what we're doing and to make it better.
Sure.
We're not out there trying to create the next version of how you use tech or something else to go do X, right?
Sure.
But we're not sitting back, allowing someone to go create it and simply copying it. We're taking the technology, using it in a unique way to make our product better.
Sure. And you've been doing that since the early days of Field Agent.
Exactly.
Right?
That's exactly right.
But I also think that that's important in itself, and to reiterate that, because you're right. Like the first iPhone, or the first couple of iPhones, you couldn't record video, and then you could, and then you guys leveraged that, and now you have the ability to do kind of voice interactions with your phone, and you could kind of always do that, but it was kind of pretty terrible until the last few months, maybe you could argue a year, maybe 2 years, like Siri and Google Home, or not Google Home, you know what I'm talking about.
So what happens to that is you spend more time editing what you just did with your voice.
Exactly.
Like,
so you're just
that's not going to work.
Yeah.
Right. Forget it. Right. So you have to be developing it as it moves along, and then now that you realize that voice is at a position or a point where it needs to be, then listen, it isn't like you started working on it today. You've been working on it for months, and so now you're ready to roll with that. So those are the interesting things as your listeners are out there, is that, again, technology is important. If you're a tech person, you want to go develop new technology, go drive that. Sure. But for most of your listeners that are out there, they have current businesses, work processes, and things that they're doing, and technology is going to enable them to do things that they never were able to do before, and that's my encouragement to them, is to be able to leverage technology.
No, I couldn't have said it better myself. But Rick, we're coming to the end of the show, so let's close with mentioning where people can get more information about yourself, Field Agent, and Jicco.
Yes, so for us, it's fieldagent.net. So it's all one word, fieldagent.net. Or if you want to try it out, just go to GoJicco. It's GoJicco. So go to GoJicco today, log in, create an account, ask a couple of questions, and be part of the movement.
Perfect, Rick. Well, again, I really appreciate you taking the time out of your day to be on the show, and I look forward to keeping in touch with you, and have a good rest of your day.
Appreciate it. Kevin, as always, man, thanks for having me on.
Thanks, man. We'll talk soon. Okay, bye.
Bye.
Thanks for listening. The music for the show is done by Electric Mantra. You can check them out at electricmantra.com and keep building the future.